Strategy Management Series. Video number 114 Strategy Formulation. Step 7 Strategy Evaluation. Step-by-step guide to solve prisoners' dilemmas. Welcome back to the Ready MBA series on strategy management. In our previous sessions, we delved into strategy evaluation, the crucial seventh step of the strategy formulation process. This stage entails scrutinizing potential strategies for their impact, benefits, costs, and resource requirements. We also discussed game theory, a technique for predicting competitors' moves in a competitive situation, and how it can be used by the planning team to refine their strategic analysis. One of the primary benefits of game theory is its ability to help decision-makers anticipate the potential outcomes of different strategies and understand the ripple effects of their choices. This is especially valuable during strategy formulation and evaluation, as it allows planners to simulate various scenarios and assess the best course of action. We introduced the concept of simultaneous moves games, where players make decisions at the same time without knowing the other's moves. These games often involve creating a strategy that considers all possible outcomes based on each player's actions. To find the optimal strategy, planners look for a dominant strategy that consistently provides a better or equal outcome than all other strategies, regardless of what the opponent does. In some games, there are no dominant strategies where one strategy is always the best regardless of what the other player does. Instead, players must consider the potential choices of others and then determine their best response. This situation is defined as a Nash equilibrium. A Nash equilibrium is a concept in game theory where each player's strategy is the best response to the other player's strategy. It is a stable decision-making point. In such situations, players do not have any incentives to change their strategies in the light of their opponent's decision. However, these equilibria do not always guarantee the best outcome for either player. A prisoner's dilemma is a concept in game theory where two players independently make decisions, resulting in a suboptimal outcome when they act in their own self-interest. The dilemma illustrates a scenario where both players can achieve better results by cooperating but end up with worse outcomes because they act on their dominant strategies, expecting others to do the same. In their book Thinking Strategically, Avinash K. Dixit and Barry J. Nailbuff suggest that resolving the prisoner's dilemma requires understanding the coordination problem and exploring methods to shift from individual self-interest to collaborative strategies. In this video, we will go through a step-by-step guide to help the planning team identify and propose alternatives to solve a prisoner's dilemma type of situation when articulating and evaluating strategies. Step 1. Understand the characteristics of a prisoner's dilemma. A prisoner's dilemma is a situation where players have the option to cooperate to achieve a better outcome or to defect, leading to a suboptimal payoff for both. Defection is generally preferred because cooperation would need coordination and trust between the players, trading short-term gains in favor of long-term mutual benefits. Each player has a dominant strategy that results in defection or non-cooperative behavior. Let's consider this example where the players have two strategies: cooperate or defect. We can see in the payoff matrix that the best outcome for both is to cooperate, with a payoff of 3 for each. However, defection is their dominant strategy. So they will choose to defect. The outcome of mutual defection is suboptimal, yielding lower payoffs than if all players cooperated. Prisoner's dilemma can also happen in games with no dominant strategies. Consider this example with two Nash equilibria where players choose high or low prices for similar products to maximize their profits. Players' best response to each other's strategy would be either both choosing high prices, which leads to higher payoffs, or both choosing low prices, which yield suboptimal outcomes for the two players. High prices would need players to coordinate their actions. But because they lack trust and have short-term incentives to undercut each other's prices, they both will choose low prices as their best response. Players acting in their self-interest may cause collective harm, while mutual cooperation could lead to better outcomes. Step 2. Analyze the strategic environment. Examine the strategic environment to identify potential prisoners' dilemmas. Determine the stakeholders involved in the strategic decision-making process. Map strategies and payoffs. Create a payoff matrix showing the strategies available to each player and the corresponding outcomes based on different combinations of strategic moves. Dominated strategies. In games with large payoff matrices, look for dominated strategies that can simplify the game. Remember that dominated strategies can be removed from the payoff matrix. Look for dominant strategies. Identify whether each player has a dominant strategy that leads to defection or non-cooperation. Some games will not have dominant strategies. In these cases, identify players' best responses to each other's decisions. Find the points of equilibrium where players have no incentives to change their strategies. These points of stable decision-making are called Nash equilibria. Verify if players have coordination and trust challenges that prevent choosing the best responses with the highest payoffs. Step 3. Determine the nature of the dilemma. Assess whether the prisoner's dilemma is a one-time or repeated interaction. One-time dilemma. In a single-instance game, defection is often the dominant strategy. Cooperation is more challenging due to the lack of future consequences. Repeated dilemma. In repeated games, players may consider future consequences and could be incentivized to cooperate to maintain longer-term benefits. If the game is played repeatedly, players may be more open to cooperate, realizing that defection in one round could lead to retaliation in the next. This dynamic can foster mutual cooperation over time. Step 4. Explore solutions to resolve the prisoner's dilemma. Consider the following strategies to promote cooperation and resolve the prisoner's dilemma. 1. Communication and trust building. Establish channels for communication and trust building among players. This can help reduce uncertainty and foster cooperation. 2. Incentives for cooperation. Create incentives that encourage players to cooperate. This could include rewards for cooperative behavior or penalties for defection. 3. Establishing enforcement mechanisms. Implement external enforcement or third-party oversight to ensure agreements are upheld and discourage cheating. 4. Use of repeated interaction. If possible, design the strategy to allow for repeated interaction. This creates a scenario where players consider future payoffs, increasing the likelihood of cooperation. 5. Negotiated agreements. Facilitate agreements among players that outline expected behavior, outcomes, and consequences for defection. Step 5. Implement mechanisms to ensure cooperation. To ensure players adhere to cooperative strategies, consider implementing mechanisms that encourage compliance and deter defection. 1. Monitoring and surveillance. Implement monitoring systems to track player behavior and ensure compliance with agreed-upon strategies. 2. Penalties for defection. Define penalties for players who deviate from cooperative strategies. Penalties should be significant enough to deter defection. 3. Trustworthiness and credibility. Build credibility and trustworthiness by demonstrating a commitment to cooperation and honoring agreements. 4. Reputation management. Use the power of reputation to encourage players to maintain cooperative behavior. A strong reputation for cooperation can be a powerful deterrent against defection. Step 6. Continually evaluate and adapt strategies. Prisoners' dilemmas can evolve over time, so it's essential to continually evaluate and adapt strategies. 1. Monitor game dynamics. Keep track of how the prisoner's dilemma changes over time. The dynamics may shift based on new information, player behavior, or external factors. 2. Adjust strategies as needed. Be prepared to adjust strategies if players' behavior changes or if new incentives arise. 3. Seek collaborative opportunities. Explore new ways to collaborate and build trust among players. This can open up new possibilities for cooperation and better outcomes. Pitfalls and attention points. While resolving a prisoner's dilemma offers benefits, there are pitfalls and attention points to consider. Risk of cheating. Players might be tempted to defect if they believe they can gain without facing consequences. Enforcement mechanisms and penalties must be strong enough to deter defection. Credibility and trust. Trust building is crucial, but it can take time. Once trust is broken, it can be challenging to rebuild. Strategies should focus on fostering trust and credibility. Communication barriers. In some situations, communication between players is limited, making cooperation challenging. Overcoming these barriers requires creative approaches to facilitate communication. Changing dynamics. The dynamics of a prisoner's dilemma may shift over time, requiring ongoing monitoring and adaptation to maintain cooperation. By following this step-by-step guide, the planning team can identify potential prisoners' dilemmas when formulating new strategies and develop effective approaches to resolve them, fostering cooperation and creating more optimal outcomes for all parties involved. And this concludes our episode with the step-by-step guide to solve a prisoner's dilemma situation when detailing and evaluating a strategy. Please join us in our next episode where we will continue our discussion about game theory. Until then, keep strategizing. See you soon.